The call came at exactly 3:17 p.m. on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, while I was reviewing blueprints for a new luxury coastal resort in Monterey. I was seated behind a massive glass desk in my corner office, 40 floors above downtown San Francisco. My phone buzzed with my brother's name, Ryan, but when I answered, it wasn't him. "Lena, I'm so glad you picked up," came the overly sweet voice of his fiancée, Madeline Park. Her tone instantly put me on edge. Madeline only sounded like that when she wanted something, or when she was about to say something cruel with a smile. She continued, "I'm calling about the engagement party this Saturday." I leaned back in my chair, glancing through the floor-to-ceiling windows at the bay stretching endlessly below me. When I first moved here 8 years ago, this office had cost me nearly everything I had. Back then, I was just starting Hailcrest Hospitality Group. Today, I owned the entire building. "What about the party?" I asked calmly. "Well, there's been a small change," Madeline said lightly. "We've decided to make it more intimate." I sat up straighter. Madeline had been engaged to my brother for 6 months, and in that time she'd made it painfully clear she thought I didn't belong in their world. "I'm not sure I understand," I said. She laughed, sharp and dismissive. "Lena, let's be honest. This isn't some casual gathering. It's being held at Harbor Ridge Country Club. It's a $50,000 event. Ryan's law partners will be there. My parents' business associates. People with expectations." I stayed silent. "You drive an old car. You work with nonprofits. You live quietly. We just don't think it's appropriate for you to attend. It might make people uncomfortable." I glanced at the framed photo on my desk from last month, me standing beside the governor during the announcement of our $3 billion international expansion. "I think you misunderstand my situation," I said carefully. "No offense," she replied smoothly, "but this celebration is about success." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, stunned, then laughed. Madeline had just uninvited me from an engagement party being hosted at a country club I owned. I was still smiling when my assistant, Nora, knocked on my office door. "Ms. Hale, your 3:30 meeting is here." "Cancel it," I said. "And get me the general manager of Harbor Ridge Country Club." 20 minutes later, Victor Reynolds, the club's general manager, came on the line. "Ms. Hale, what a pleasant surprise. There's an engagement party scheduled for Saturday evening," I said. "The Park Hale event?" "Yes, of course. Grand ballroom. Premium package. It's one of our biggest events this month. I want it cancelled." Silence. "May I ask why?" "Because the host deliberately uninvited the owner of the venue for being too poor to attend." Another pause, longer this time. "I see. Should I inform Ms. Park?" "Yes. And let her know the cancellation is final." "What about the deposit?" I thought briefly. "Keep it." By early evening, my phone rang again. This time it was Ryan, and Madeline was screaming in the background. "Lena, what the hell is going on?" Ryan demanded. "The club cancelled our party." "It makes perfect sense," I replied calmly. "Your fiancé told me I wasn't allowed to attend an event at his own property. You don't own Harbor Beach." I do, along with 16 other luxury venues. Dead silence. Madeline's voice cut in, frantic. "This is a mistake. Would you prefer locked doors," I asked, "or security escorting you out?" There was a long stretch of silence on the line. I could hear faint sobbing in the background, Madeline, finally realizing that her words had consequences. Ryan spoke again, slower this time, like his world had tilted off its axis. You work at a non-profit, he said weakly. You drive that old sedan. You never talk about money. I volunteer with non-profits, I corrected calmly. Because I choose to. I drive that car because it's reliable. And I don't talk about money because it's never been the most interesting thing about me. That doesn't make sense, Ryan said. If you're really that successful, why didn't we know? I leaned back in my chair and stared at the city skyline. The lights of 3 of my hotels were beginning to glow as evening settled over San Francisco. When was the last time you asked me about my work? I asked quietly. He didn't answer. I'll tell you, I continued. Never. Not once in 8 years. You all decided who I was based on what I wore, how I lived, and what I didn't show off. No one bothered to look deeper. Madeline's voice suddenly cut in, shrill and desperate. This has to be a joke. You can't actually own the club. Madeline, I said evenly, would you like security to escort you out on Saturday? Or would you prefer to arrive and find the doors locked? You can't do this, she cried. We have a contract. You have a contract with a company I own, I replied. And yes, I absolutely can. Ryan sounded strained now. Lena, please. Our families are flying in. My law partners. Everyone knows about this party. Earlier today, I said, your fiancé told me I was too poor to attend your engagement party. Now you want my help to save it. We didn't know it was your club, he said quietly. You didn't know anything about my life, I replied. Because you never cared to ask. Madeline was crying openly now, the polished confidence completely gone. What do you want? Ryan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I want you to understand something, I said. Success doesn't always look the way you expect it to. And humility doesn't mean failure. For years, you treated me like an underachiever while I was building something extraordinary. My other line beeped, another property manager calling. Business didn't pause for family drama. I have to go, I said. I have a company to run. Actually, several. Lena, wait, Ryan pleaded. Can we fix this? I looked out over the city I'd built my life in. You can fix your assumptions, I said. But your engagement party is cancelled. I ended the call before Ryan could say anything else. My phone went silent for a moment, then immediately lit up again, missed calls, messages, voicemails piling in faster than I could read them. I ignored them all. Instead, I turned my attention back to my desk. Contracts. Acquisition summaries. Emails from regional managers across 3 states. While my brother and his fiancée were panicking over a cancelled party, my businesses were still running, guests were still checking into hotels, and deals worth millions were still moving forward. That Saturday evening, I stayed late at the office. The city glowed beneath me, alive and restless. Somewhere across town, Ryan and Madeline were scrambling to salvage their engagement celebration. I didn't need to ask how it was going, I already knew. At exactly 9:02 p.m., my phone rang again. Ryan. I answered this time. Where are you? He asked quietly. At work, I replied. Where else would I be? There was an awkward pause. I could hear chaos in the background, children shouting, arcade machines beeping, distorted music playing far too loudly. We are at a family restaurant in Daly City, he admitted. It was the only place we could find. I pictured Madeline in her designer dress, standing under fluorescent lights, surrounded by balloons shaped like cartoon animals. The contrast was almost painful. "How's the party?" I asked. He let out a hollow laugh. "There is no party. My law partner's left after 20 minutes. Her parents are humiliated." The champagne turned out to be sparkling cider. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, though my tone made it clear I wasn't. "No, you're not," Ryan replied. "And honestly, you shouldn't be." Madeline's muffled sobs echoed through the line. She wanted a celebration that excluded people she thought were beneath her, Ryan continued. And now she's having exactly that. I leaned back in my chair, exhaustion finally catching up with me. "Ryan, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Do you really want to marry someone who decides a person's worth by their bank account?" There was a long silence. Longer than before. "I don't know," he said finally. "A week ago, I thought she was sophisticated. Now I'm realizing she's just cruel." "That's something only you can figure out," I said gently. Another call beeped through, Nora again, reminding me about a late-night investor meeting. "I have to go," I told him. "But Ryan, this didn't happen because of money. It happened because of character." He sighed. "I think I'm finally starting to understand." As I hung up, I felt no triumph, only clarity. The night hadn't destroyed their engagement party. It had exposed everything that was already broken. The following Monday morning felt strangely calm. The chaos of the weekend had passed, replaced by a quiet heaviness that lingered in the back of my mind. I arrived at my office early, coffee in hand, and reviewed progress reports from our Napa Valley property acquisition. Life, as always, moved forward. At 10:14 a.m., my phone rang. "Ryan." I hesitated before answering, then picked up. "Hello." "Lena," he said softly. "I wanted to call and apologize." "Really apologize? For what, exactly?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. There was a pause. "For letting Madeline treat you the way she did. For not defending you. And for 8 years of making assumptions about your life instead of asking questions." I set my coffee down and listened. "I let her humiliate you because I thought you were struggling," he continued. "And because of that, I failed you as a brother." The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard. "Where are you calling from?" I asked. "From the parking lot outside her apartment," he said. "We had a long talk last night. It didn't go well." I could imagine it, the excuses, the tears, the justifications wrapped in self-pity. "And?" I asked. "And I don't like who she becomes when money is involved," Ryan admitted. "The way she talks about people. The way she looks down on anyone she thinks has less. I should have noticed it sooner." "You should have," I agreed gently. "But noticing now is better than never." He exhaled slowly. "I also want to say this, you built something incredible. And instead of being proud of you, I let ignorance and ego get in the way." For the first time in years, I felt something loosen in my chest. "Thank you," I said. "That means more than you realize." Another pause. "Can you help me understand what you actually do?" Ryan asked. "Not the headlines. Not the numbers. You?" I smiled faintly. "I'd like that. But not because I need validation. Because I want you to know me." "I do," he said quickly. "I really do." Before we hung up, he added quietly, "I don't know what's going to happen with Madeline. But I know things can't stay the same." After the call ended, I looked around my office, the awards, the plans, the proof of years of quiet effort. For the first time, it felt like my success wasn't standing between me and my family anymore. It was finally opening a door. 3 weeks passed without any word from Madeline. The silence spoke louder than any apology ever could. Ryan, however, called more often, not with drama, but with questions. Real ones. He wanted to know how I'd started Hailcrest Hospitality, with nothing but a small investor loan and a rented office. He asked about the first hotel that nearly failed, the nights I slept on a couch, the years I reinvested every dollar instead of upgrading my lifestyle. For the first time, my brother wasn't assuming, he was listening. One evening, as I was reviewing sustainability plans for a new desert resort, Ryan called again. "It's over," he said. I closed my laptop. "You and Madeline?" "Yes." His voice was steady, but tired. "I ended it this morning." I didn't rush to respond. Ending an engagement wasn't something to celebrate. "I'm sorry," I said honestly. "I know," he replied. "But I'm also relieved. The last few weeks showed me who she really is." "What was the final straw?" I asked. "She started calling you," he said flatly. "Asking about business opportunities. Wanting introductions. Talking about how powerful it would be to be close to you." I felt a familiar disappointment settle in. "She never once apologized, did she?" "No," Ryan admitted. "She just pivoted. Like your success suddenly made you valuable." "That's not growth," I said. "That's opportunism." "I know," he replied. And once I saw it clearly, I couldn't unsee it. He hesitated before continuing. "I also realized something else. I never questioned the way she treated waiters, hotel staff, or anyone she thought couldn't benefit her. I ignored it because it didn't affect me." "That's how it always starts," I said quietly. Ryan exhaled. "I don't want a future built on that kind of thinking." We talked for a long time after that, about values, about mistakes, about how easy it is to confuse status with substance. When we finally hung up, I felt something shift. Not just for him, but for us. A few days later, Ryan asked if we could have dinner, just the two of us. We met at my Napa Valley property, the historic hotel I'd been acquiring the night of the cancelled engagement party. As we sat on the terrace overlooking the vineyards, he looked around in quiet awe. "You built all this," he said. "Yes," I replied. "But more importantly, I built it without becoming someone I don't recognize." He nodded slowly. "I want to learn how to do that too." For the first time in years, I believed him. 6 months later, Ryan and I met again at the same Napa Valley resort, but this time the atmosphere was different. Lighter. Honest. He arrived early, not in a tailored suit, but in rolled-up sleeves, looking relaxed in a way I'd never seen before. He wasn't alone. "This is Claire," he said, smiling. "She teaches public school in Oakland." Claire shook my hand warmly. "I already know who you are," she said with a grin. "My students use the libraries your foundation helped fund." Ryan turned to me, surprised. "You never told me about that." "There are a lot of things I never told you," I said gently. Not because I was hiding them, but because no one asked. Over dinner, conversation flowed easily. No posturing. No quiet judgments. Just real curiosity. Claire asked thoughtful questions about sustainable development. Ryan listened as I explained how Hailcrest Hospitality reinvested profits into education, affordable housing, and environmental initiatives. As the sun dipped behind the vineyards, Ryan raised his glass. "To Lena," he said. "For teaching me that success isn't always loud, and that judging people by appearances says more about us than them." "And to family," I added. "The kind that learns." Later that evening, as we walked along the terrace, Ryan slowed his steps. "I need to tell you something," he said. "Breaking up with Madeline was painful. But it forced me to confront who I was becoming. I didn't like that person." "Growth rarely feels comfortable," I replied. He nodded. "I used to think success meant being seen in the right places, with the right people. Now I think it means being able to sleep at night knowing you didn't compromise your values." I smiled. "That's the most expensive lesson you'll ever learn, and the most valuable." That night, after they left, I stood alone on the balcony overlooking the vineyard. The lights of the resort glowed softly below, filled with guests who had no idea who owned the property, or how quietly the work behind it all was done. I thought back to the engagement party that never happened. To the humiliation that was meant for me, but instead revealed truths no one could ignore. What started as cruelty became clarity. What felt like rejection became release. I hadn't needed revenge. I'd already won by living honestly, building responsibly, and refusing to let other people's assumptions define me. Success, I realized, isn't about proving people wrong. It's about building a life so solid that their judgments no longer matter, and sometimes, if you're lucky, helping the people you love learn that lesson too.